last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
what's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Master Instructor Roundtable. I am Wendy Batts, here with my friend, co-host, and colleague, as always, Dr. Marty Miller. Marty, how are you?
I'm good, Wendy. How's everything today?
Everything is great. This is going to be a podcast that I know you always say this when you open. Marty, I say this as well. When we have a very special guest that will be joining us, we usually get a little hyped up because we can ask questions that we always get asked, but now we have a specialized person. So we have Kat Barefield joining us today. And those of you guys that haven't been around and don't know of Kat, she has been with us for a very long time. So we are obviously dear friends. And she is the Vice President of Nutrition Services for .fit. She is a registered dietitian, and she is a master instructor, especially on the topic of nutrition for the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And why don't we go ahead and bring Kat on, because we're going to talk about the truth about how supplements are regulated. So, Kat, thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
As always, Kat.
Likewise. Let's dig in. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, this would be a good topic because I can even say I'm not 100% confident if I know the answers to these. So let's start right off the bat. Many people, many personal trainers believe supplements are not regulated in the U.S. Is that even the case?
So the answer is kind of, but let me clarify. There is legislation in place that oversees dietary supplements. The problem is that it's an honor system, and the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is responsible for overseeing the supplement industry, sort of loosely regulates it. So that's my answer. It is loosely regulated.
Loosely.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than it depends.
I know, right? But supplements are actually regulated as subcategories of foods. And because they're regulated as subcategories of foods, right? No supplement has to be tested for safety or efficacy prior to being sold. How scary is that?
Okay, that is scary. And that's actually, I'm going off script again. I mean, we haven't even started. I haven't asked my first question, but here we go.
Let's just do it.
I'm gonna. So fingers crossed, Kat. No, I know you've got this one. But .fit, obviously, the way that they regulate, we know what's on the labels in the bottle. But and you said it's kind of an honor system, but I mean, how do you know if it says it's 100% of whatever it is, that it actually is that? I mean, is that even the case? Is there certain supplements we should worry about?
Yeah, so you have to know what you're looking for. Okay, so let me just back up a little bit. So this piece of legislation that was passed in 1994, right? It allowed companies to take ingredients typically found in nature and be manufactured into a dietary supplement. So anything found in nature, companies can take. So for example, right, maybe you know someone who takes a calcium supplement. So at the time, people were like, hey, I should be able to buy calcium, right? I should be able to get it from a, health food store or wherever. I shouldn't have to go to my doctor to get a prescription for calcium. It is a natural thing, a natural ingredient. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the undertones. And so what the FDA did was they allowed this to happen, but they put in rules in place that companies have to follow or supposed to follow to ensure that supplements are safe and are high quality. These rules were called good manufacturing practices, GMPs. Well, then you might be thinking, how does the FDA reinforce these rules? Because they don't have to test. No product, no supplement, right, is ever tested or approved by the FDA. So if you're a trainer and you've said that before, stop saying that because it's not true. The FDA never approves a dietary supplement. They can only recall it or issue a warning, right? But what the FDA did was they said, okay, you guys that are making supplements, you have to follow all these rules. And to enforce these rules, we are going to do random audits. So we reserve the right to show up at your supplement company and see if you are actually following all these rules. And so that's what they do. They pick about 500 different companies a year, and they show up with their hard hat and their clipboard and all their rules, and they go through and they check, right? And see, are you following these rules? And then they issue what's called infractions, right? Or violations of the rules. And then the FDA will say, hey, you're in violation of blah, 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 whatever rule it is. You should fix it. So every year they publish a report with their findings. And typically what they found is that about half the companies that they audit, right, about 500 a year, aren't following the rules. And the number one rule they violate has to do with quality control. It's testing raw ingredients. It's making sure that the ingredients are actually in the bottle. It's all these different things that have to do with the quality of supplements. So this is a long way of answering your question, Wendy, but you don't really know if it is unless you know what to look for. Okay, so let's go into that, right? What do you look for as a consumer? Well, number one, does it even work? Like, is there enough science, research, actual research studies in human beings that show that this ingredient works, right? So you've got to have a little bit of knowledge. You have to know and be familiar with the research. The average consumer is not, right? The average consumer is not. So they don't even know what they're looking for. Well, of course, at NASM, we've written courses and done workshops and podcasts on different supplements to talk about what the science shows. But again, the average consumer doesn't know. Then the second thing to look for, is it independently third-party tested, right? So the company that makes the product, for instance, .fit, do they actually pay for their product to get independently tested and then verified to ensure that what's on the label is actually in the container, right? And in some cases, like if you want to test for banned substances, you hire an organization like Informed Choice or Informed Sport or NSF International that actually tests for banned substances. So those are the two things that you have to know. Does the supplement have enough science behind it that it works? Does it, and the proper ingredients, which is a whole nother thing. Does it have the right dosage, right? Let's say creatine. You want to know what's the proper dosage. If I take a little bit of creatine, that might not work. I got to take the right amount. And then the independent test verification. So yeah, it's a little complicated.
It's a lot complicated, and I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question and not make it more complicated. So imagine the average consumer walking through like a Costco, and there's hundreds of supplements, and there could be 6 different fish oils. There could be this, that, the other. Now, again, I'm blessed, and I hope everybody listening really uses this to understand why we're partnered with .fit, why Neil Spruce and Kat, what you've done with the company since you've been there. You guys are that thought leader, and you're guaranteeing what we just talked about. But do you even, 2-part question, would you even have a guess at the percentage of supplements that are in a place like that could be maybe, in the decent range? And then how would somebody do a search? Because they're just going to go to Google, and you can stack the odds of your product coming to the top of a Google search. That doesn't mean it's a research article that was published in Journal of American Medical Association or anything like that. So how can they even do searches and even understand what's out there?
Exactly. Like, where do you even look, right? Okay.
Right.
So then, so this is a great question. So what are the reputable resources that the average consumer can rely on to see if a supplement is science backed? So you would go to independent resources. What's the highest quality level? It's randomized controlled trials and even meta-analyses. This is actually the science, the geeky stuff that you would have to actually do a search in like PubMed, the National Library of Medicine, and read scientific papers. Well, the average person's not going to do that, right? So there are other organizations that filter through the research, right? And then basically summarize it for you. So obviously we do that at DaFit, but there are other organizations that do that as well. For example, the International Society of Sports Nutrition, ISSN. They do review papers. So you might Google review paper on creatine from ISSN. And so there are a bunch of scientists, PhDs, RDs are in the labs, they publish their research, and they have a lot of their scientists that contribute to these review papers to tell you whether or not certain supplements are valid or not. And then there are other companies, for example, Examine.com. Examine.com does the similar thing that ISSN does, and they will, review the literature and then put their findings online. But like, again, most people are not going into ISSN's position papers or Examine.com, because they don't have the they don't even know that what they're buying on the shelf might not actually be in the bottle. Which, to answer your other question, is it depends on who you read, but some papers will say, 30% of products out there aren't formulated properly. Other papers will say it's more. And then if you talk to industry insiders that are really familiar, that work in the supplement industry, they'll tell you it's way more than that. So it depends on the source.
So, Kat, there were stories out there when I first kind of got into working with you guys where there was trainers or a particular trainer at a particular gym that had gotten in trouble because he wrote down specific supplements that he wanted his client to take. And this client, for those of you guys that don't know the story, went to a particular nutrition store and purchased some of these supplements, or all of these supplements that was given to her on the list by the trainer, and then unfortunately had a reaction and passed away later that evening. And so the family sued the store, the trainer, and the gym. And I think won all three cases. And so I think I'm telling the story because this is going to lead to the question. And I know this is a lot of fear because I hear this all the time. Trainers are scared, and I don't blame them, for liability reasons, unless they hold that RD title like you do to say, I mean, unless it's like some of the common things, like you talk about vitamin D or calcium or something that's a little bit more about education. Yeah. But when it comes to the point of they're writing this down, saying this is what you need, and then something happening, they are liable. But so how do we as trainers feel comfortable talking about supplements and what we feel that they should do without being liable, if you will? Yeah.
So again, you never want to recommend a dietary supplement that's sort of a prescription, right, for a medical condition or a disease. So that's definitely out of the scope of practice. That's what RDs can do. To your point, it's about educating. Here are the supplements that have evidence that can benefit you. And here are the guidelines for how to pick up a supplement properly. Right? It's got to have X, Y, and Z, and it's got to be third-party tested. And again, this is a profession, right? This is a fitness profession. So you have to do some investment into educating yourself about nutrition, supplements, and the right way to select dietary supplements. But I would never write a prescription down for dietary supplement as a nutrition coach or as a personal trainer. At DaFit, we take care of that because we have a software system that actually you can input your client's information. And if they have a medical condition, then the software system rules out like things like stimulants, if you have certain conditions, etc. So our software system sort of takes care of it for you. So trainers never have to recommend it themselves, right? The system is doing it for them. And the algorithms in that system, take care of the recommendation. But for the average person, the nutrition coach and the trainer, you've got to get some education, and you've got to know and educate your clients on what criteria to look for.
Excellent. That's great information, Kat. And for all of you just joining us today, myself, Marty Miller, here with Wendy Batts on the Master Instructor Roundtable. We have a very special guest, registered dietitian, Kat Barefield, she's been an NASM Master Instructor. She works heavily on the CNC, Vice President of Nutritional Services for .fit. So basically our go-to for everything nutrition. And today we're talking about the truth about how supplements are regulated. So Kat, moving forward, how are adverse events related to dietary supplements reported and tracked in the US? Is there, kind of coming off of Wendy's conversation or question, is there a place that we could go to follow up on this?
Yeah, so the FDA maintains what they call a health fraud database. You can actually Google the health fraud database. And in this database, the last time I checked, there were over 2,000, maybe 2015 or so dietary supplements that the FDA has identified, right, to be fraudulent. And typically they are contaminated with either prescription drugs or illegal substances. So they try to maintain a database, but like, who knows about this database? Like, so, but you can go there as a fitness professional, you should know about it because you can go there and see all the products that have been identified to be fraudulent, right? And adverse events are typically reported by consumers to the FDA, right? They'll say that, hey, I had this, liver condition and I took the supplement and I ended up being sick and hospitalized. So people can report their adverse events in the FDA. And then of course, if there's a death and they find that it's related to a dietary supplement, then that gets reported and then supplements can eventually be recalled from the market if they found to be harmful. So the problem is that like where are people getting this information? Like most people don't know the way supplements are regulated. Most people don't know that they're regulated like subcategories of foods, right? They just think, hey, it's America. In America, I should be able to go into the store, buy a product, what's on the label is in the bottle, and it's perfectly safe. And that's just not the case. That's just not how it works.
So, Kat, here I go again. The rules and regulations, especially on the dietary side. So now I'm talking about just not even just supplements. I'm going to even say foods. Obviously, the way that our food, what is okay by the FDA is different than what's okay in, let's say, Europe, right? We have different standards. So are there different standards globally in comparison to like what we as the FDA, it's not regulated, as you said. However, I mean, is there a difference between maybe supplements that you would buy elsewhere versus buy in the States?
Yes, there are definite differences. So in Europe, they're a little bit more tightly regulated. Say Canada has a little bit more precautions on theirs. So depending on the country, they can, obviously put different laws and rules in place for what gets to be sold in their country. So it's just different wherever you go. And what's happening now with the FDA is now they're removing regulations and oversight of food in particular and other things. And so people like to think, hey man, we shouldn't be regulated. We shouldn't have the government doing this and that. Well, some of it's good. Like, do you want to make sure that like there's not like contaminants and foodborne illnesses that that can occur, like food poisoning from your food because of regulation? Like you want some things to be regulated, right? Now, I agree that you should be able to get certain things like calcium and omega-3s from a store to support and enhance your health. I agree with that. And you shouldn't have to go get a prescription from your doctor. However, we need to do it responsibly. So we as fitness professionals need to educate ourselves and we need to educate our clients on what to look for and how to select dietary supplements responsibly.
That's a great point, Kat. And like I said, I'm all in on .fit because again, I know this process and I know that everything is third-party tested and what's on the bottle is in the bottle. Not even that, it's the right dosing as well, because we had Neil on and we realized what an important part that is. Somebody could sell a supplement and maybe it is vitamin D, but it's not going to meet the amounts that you need. And that's why they can sell it at a lower price, et cetera. So again, everybody should go search out .fit, but could you also give, everyone listening here, maybe a couple easy takeaways when they're looking at a bottle? Is there terminology or anything that the average person could look at that maybe kind of allows them to think that this could be a better product?
Yeah. So, for example, one of the most popular supplements right now is creatine monohydrate, and the effective dosage for creatine for most individuals is 3 to 5 grams a day. Okay. So, for example, does this creatine product have 3 to 5 grams, a scoop, a serving, right? In order to take that, and then does this particular creatine product have an independent third party test? So that could be USP does a verification, ingredient verification test. And then the more robust testing agencies like Informed Sport, like NSF International, they do testing for contaminants and banned substances, especially if you're an athlete, a competitive athlete. So they can look for those things. Now, I would not just look for those like stickers on the label. I would cross-check it against NSF's website. NSF has a website, and you can double check to make sure that product's listed on the website, because sadly, some companies have fraudulently added that NSF sticker to their products, and they really were not NSF tested. So it is not, it's not just, I wish I could give like if it has a green check mark, right, or a gold star, it's a good product. Like, it's just, we don't have that. We don't have that in this country. Anybody can make anything and say anything on their label and make all these claims. And there's very little oversight to the claims that people make on their labels, and to even using some of these third-party testing. So you've got to do some extra diligence when it comes to dietary supplements.
So, Kat, how is that legal? Like, if I want to say, okay, I'm selling this brand, and I'm like, I don't know if it's really what it says it is, but I'm just going to add this check mark, make sure that the label looks like the label of things that have been verified. How can people not come back and come after these guys? Like, how do they not get in trouble for that?
They sometimes do. They get caught. So, for example, there have been class action lawsuits for some of these companies that claim to have certain dosages but really don't, right? And so companies have gotten sued if consumers find out, and then they go after them. The FTC can come after illegal claims on labels. But then again, it's a matter of like, are they paying attention? Like, how many dietary supplements on the market? There's some crazy number, like 200,000 or something. Like, out of all the different supplements on the market, like how much are they actually checking? So yeah, things are illegal, but some people roll the dice, say illegal things, put the third-party labels on their products. They roll the dice, betting that they're not going to get caught. And like, obviously, we do work together, NASM do work together, but there are other high quality supplements on the market if you know what you're looking for, right? If you know what you're looking for.
Gotcha. Now I'm going to go off script. So this is a little self-serving, but there's so many people in my demographics that need to know this information, because I did get a phone call from one of my buddies. So me being in my early 50s, of course, I pay extra every year, twice a year, actually, to get an expanded panel of my blood work, because I want to know. And obviously at 52, I do check my testosterone levels, and I'm doing well, obviously age related, but I do what I can naturally to keep them where they need to be best I can. But I see all these supplements now that say they're going to increase testosterone. But the scary part to that, to me, is if you're even going to go down a medical TRT, which is still a healthy option for people in their 50s, they don't just give you something to boost your testosterone. They give you other things because of, you need anti-estrogens, you need to be on a cycle, you need to clean yourself up. Why in the world, if these supplements even do that, this isn't something you could be taking all the time? Am I missing something here? Or is that even one of the scarier ones if it was to do what it says it does?
Yeah, so it is scary, mainly because a lot of times they can include steroids, for instance, in the supplement without you being aware of it. So that can be scary, right? But most of the natural substances, which is the definition of a dietary supplement, a natural ingredient, do not significantly boost testosterone. So the whole test booster thing, like, is from a lab study in animals that showed just a slight increase in testosterone. So it's basically an exaggeration of evidence, if there's even any evidence. And if you do take a test booster that's contaminated and do see results, to your point, there could be adverse effects that occur because you're not taking into account the other things that need to happen if you do increase your testosterone levels.
Gotcha. No, I really appreciate that, Kat. And, this has been such a great episode. And I want to pause here to let everybody know that this episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off of all certifications and specializations, access to free CEUs and more. All this just for $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. Wendy, I know that you've got a question here for Kat, so I'll pass it back over to you.
Well, Kat, I think, sometimes it's good to understand the inside of the company. And so obviously we're going to talk about DotFit because you work for them. You're very familiar with them. They are a partner of ours who we obviously cherish that partnership. But walk us through, again, DotFit is a third-party tested facility, meaning all the supplements have been third-party tested. You talked about what that means, but can you kind of walk us through the actual, when you walk in and these supplements are being made, like what does that look like? How do you keep them pure and clean in comparison to some of these other companies out there that they cannot make that claim?
So there are different companies that do third-party testing. And so, they'll take, and there's levels to it, right? So there are companies that test basically label accuracy. So what's on the label is inside the bottle. That's like the minimum third-party test you want, is what's on the label inside the container. And there's different companies that do that. And then there are companies, like I said, Inform Choice, Inform Sport, and NSF International that will test for additional stuff, whether it's contaminated, banned substances, pesticides, steroids, prescription drugs, things like that. And what they will do is they will randomly pull your finished product that's already been made by a manufacturer, right? Your finished product from the specific lots. Of course, they will all track those lots, and then they will run them through a lab. Now, I've never been in a third-party testing company, so I don't know exactly what it looks like, but obviously they have sophisticated equipment to analyze the contents, and they typically produce something called a certificate of analysis. And that certificate of analysis will break down the ingredient amounts and totals and forms that are present, as well as additional substances if they have the ability to test for those substances. So it is not one mandatory by law to do third-party testing. So supplement companies do not have to do this. It's completely voluntary. And do you think it costs money to pay a company? Right? So, we pay a lot of money to take our finished products and pay, we use various third-party testing agencies to actually verify that what's on the labels inside and it's free of banned substances. And then, like I said earlier, you want to double check, like, are these products on the NSF, website? Do they appear on the website to verify? I'm not sure if Inform Sport has a website. I'm sure they do, but you want to double check. Are they actually listed on there as well? So again, most people don't know that third-party testing is optional or what the levels of third-party testing are. So like if you're a competitive athlete, right, and you're competing at any level, like college, elite, like you want to make sure that your product is clean, right? And so your camp might be telling you to take all these supplements for whatever, take this test booster, take this pre-workout test, whatever. Your camp might be telling you to do that because it worked for them, but they might not be aware, right, that supplements aren't tested for banned substances unless they have gone through and gotten the NSF certification or the Informed Sport certification to ensure that. And, hey, if I know it's important for athletes to not get banned from their sport, but I would think anybody walking around would not want to consume, right, any banned substances. So, It's not just for athletes, it's for everybody.
No, it makes a ton of sense. So Kat, as always, our conversations go in a lot of different directions and we could keep them going for hours, but to be respectful of your time, do you have any key takeaways for our listeners?
So I think my key takeaways are, okay, always, especially for trainers, get educated, right? Go into some of these resources like ISSN, like Examine. We produced a certification as well, talking about different ingredients and different effectiveness. If you're super sciencey and geeky, go to PubMed, look in and see, supplements and proper dosages, do that research, get educated. Obviously the CNC course. I know we have a certified sports specialist. Am I saying that right? I know we have all these acronyms.
Yes.
We have these advanced
SNC. So yes. So
right,
the sports
right.
nutrition certification. So
Yes.
basically you become a sports nutrition coach. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you got to learn. There's no way around it, right? This is a fitness profession. We're educating people about their bodies. We're telling them how to feed their bodies. But get some education, and then I would, as a practice, make sure that you are buying supplements from a company that actually has their products third-party tested. Like, it's just important. It's just like, making sure what you're putting in your body is high quality. I mean, we only have one body. Like, take care of it. Let's not go cheap. Let's not buy things based on price that we're going to ingest in concentrated dosages. Like, if we're going to do that, let's make sure that it is what it says it is and it's third-party tested, right?
Makes sense to me.
And Marty, I think too, for those of you guys that are listening, remember, if you go to our discount page and you see .fit, they provide us with an incredible discount. And so it's one of those things where, to me, I also use .fit. I know, Marty, you do as well, because of what you just said, Kat. Like, I just call you guys, you, Nick, and Neo. I'm like, I need help with all my athletes. I just send them your way because you are the experts. And but we fully trust the quality of it, and we get our athletes are tested all the time, and we haven't been in trouble yet, so we're doing all right.
I'm knocking on wood.
I know, right?
Well, thank you for that. You guys have been awesome. Any last questions for me?
I think we're good. Wendy, do you got anything?
I don't think so.
Well, Kat, I know we're going to have follow-ups. These are always very, well-watched podcasts when you're on, because there's so many, we're in this industry. We still don't know enough about this. So we really do appreciate your passion, your expertise for this. So as people watch the podcast, if they weren't watching it live and they start throwing questions to Wendy and I, don't be surprised if you don't get an email or a phone call saying, hey, in a couple of weeks, we'd love to have you back. So I have a feeling you'll be back this year.
If I may, I'm going to do a plug for me. If
Please.
You want this information, especially if you're a woman over 40, which is my specialty, I'm on Instagram at nourishwithkat_RD. At nourishwithkat_RD. So follow me there for more fitness tips, especially for women over 40.
Love it. Excellent. So, well, Kat, can't thank you enough. I mean, again, we will definitely see you again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Kat. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Another great one, Wendy.
I know, she's incredible, and she can answer all the questions I can't. So
yeah, she's knowledgeable, she's passionate, she stays on top of the most current research, and she makes it digestible, no pun intended, I guess, for you, the little bit of information she has to put out there in this short form.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Excellent. Well, as always, Wendy, it's great doing this with you. And for all of you that joined us, keep the questions coming. You know how to get a hold of us. Wendy.Batts@NASM.org, Marty.Miller@NASM.org. Wendy, you want to throw in your Instagram?
Yeah, it's WBatts13. Yeah, there you go. So I was going to say, I know that
Eric is on it. And then
he is on it. So WBatts13.
dr.MartyMiller72. He doesn't miss a beat. So thank you all for joining this week. And most importantly, we look forward to seeing you next week on the Master Instructor Roundtable.